In our previous video, Video 3, Why? We briefly touched upon that there are overt and covert narcissists, and I am certain all of us have encountered both kinds. In this video, we want to go a little deeper into the difference between these two personality traits. On a basic level, a narcissist is someone who is abusive towards others on a regular basis. This is who they are. The abuse can be obvious, or it can be so hidden that we, as victim to such a person, don't even see it. Therefore, we might feel there is something wrong with us. The former kind of narcissism is called overt narcissism, and the latter is termed covert narcissism, but both kinds of narcissists are extremely abusive. According to those who are well studied on the subject, narcissism has become one of the biggest problems in society today, and the number of narcissists has increased rapidly over the last few decades. The increase started incrementally with the Industrial Revolution, when people went from a more community or tribe-based society, where each person was needed for the survival of the community, to a society where the individual became disposable and replaceable in a new and more sophisticated, technological era. There is a purpose behind this increase, which we will go into later. In a society where everyone is needed for the survival of the tribe or community, there is less tolerance for narcissists, who feed off of others and operate on an entirely self-serving basis. This was recognized, and would usually not be accepted because it threatened the survival of the entire tribe. This doesn't mean narcissism didn't exist then, of course it did, but it was not so widespread. The Alien Invader Force, the AIF, had a more difficult time placing narcissists into these communities. Today, it's a totally different matter. Overt narcissists are openly arrogant, self-centered, aggressive, superior, intimidating, defensive, manipulative, sometimes physically and verbally violent towards others, and overtly abusive to others. These are the obvious narcissists who most people recognize, and the majority of us, if we can help it, don't want to have anything to do with them. They come across as if they always know what's best, and they put themselves on a pedestal. If you argue with them, they become very upset, and they might start accusing you of being ignorant and stupid and of their own shortcomings, and some become physically violent. These people are easy to spot. We see them all the time in high places, but also in our everyday interaction with others. Covert narcissists work a little differently and are considered more dangerous because they are often looked upon as the good person, while their victims become the bad person. They have a stunning ability to twist things around, which makes it very difficult to spot them. Although they can also have some of the same traits as the overt narcissists, they are not as obvious in their behavior. They are also sometimes called shy narcissists because they often like to play the victim rather than the perpetrator, although they are the real abusers. They are usually very passive-aggressive, and they alternatively love bomb and evaluate their victims to make them confused. It's a similar technique Joseph Mengele used on children in Nazi Germany. He specialized on identical twins, and he kept Jewish children in captivity and abused them both verbally and physically to severely traumatize them. Then, he came back later, now playing the role as the loving and caring father figure. Then, he returned again and continued abusing the children. This creates compartmentalization in the subconscious mind, and the child dissociates from the trauma by disowning the traumatic incident. He or she separates himself or herself from the trauma, and those parts of the mind become unavailable to the child. The conscious mind can't access most, or all, of what happened during the abuse. The abuser can then program the traumatized part of the mind with whatever personality he or she wishes to create. Subsequently, the programmer can include a secret code, only known to the programmer and his or her superiors, and when the program is being executed, it will make the victim take on the personality programmed into their subconscious mind. This is known as dissociative identity disorder, DID, in scientific terms. This technique later developed into MK-Ultra mind control, used by U.S. intelligence and other governmental institutions around the world. Mengele was of course a narcissist to the extreme, and psychologists call these people antisocial personalities or psychopaths. The common narcissists are not this sophisticated, but their abuse has a very similar effect on our mind. When we are being abused and traumatized, we dissociate as well, and we lose memory and access to much, and sometimes all, of the traumatic incident we experience. This is particularly true with children, until about the age of 5 to 7 years old, whereafter the conscious mind is usually much more developed. Before that, the young child learns by studying people in their environment, foremost their parents, and they mimic what they learn. This is why Illuminati programmers in the MK Ultra program and its offspring concentrated on traumatizing children from a young age rather than adults. We strongly recommend that you look into what the life coaches, who are specialized in helping narc victims, have to say about narcissism, because it would be too much to go into in this project. It would require an entire channel on just that subject, and we have a lot of topics to discuss. But in order to inform those who are unfamiliar with narcissism, we still need to at least cover the surface of all the important information that is now out there. See the description box below this video to find the Life Couch's websites and YouTube channels. We have already mentioned that the worst trauma and the most fragmentation happen in a person's childhood for the above reasons. This doesn't mean that the entire additional trauma we are subjected to in adulthood does not fragment our minds as well, but traumas register as chains in a person's subconscious mind. By this, we mean that if we had a traumatic experience regarding rejection when we were infants, toddlers, or young children, this creates a fragmentation. Similar experiences in adolescence and adulthood stick themselves onto the same chain. Therefore, when it's time to heal from narcissistic abuse, we can address incidents that are more current to begin with and go backward in time, until we find the first trauma, whereafter the entire chain reintegrates with the conscious mind, and instead of being hidden from our memory, and therefore affecting us and our behavior in our daily lives, they now become accessible experiences that we can gain from. Now, how do we find these traumas within ourselves, and how do we distinguish them from our own, conscious thoughts? We do so by recognizing our triggers. Triggers, also called flashbacks, are turned on by our emotions. We know that we have triggers when we experience emotions that are out of control and linger for a longer period of time than is appropriate to the situation. During triggers, we might also react in ways that are otherwise uncharacteristic for us. For example, if someone says they don't like our new shoes, and we become overly sad, or even fall into a depression, we know the person triggered an earlier incident within us that probably had to do with being invalidated and not good enough in our childhood. When this happened, we might have a difficult time figuring out why we reacted so deeply, because the earlier incidents are hidden from us, and we can't easily access them. Often, when we have a tendency to react deeply on a regular basis, people around us might call us sensitive, when in fact, we are just having earlier emotional wounds triggered.